I want to respond to a comment on a video titled Akon is Deceived. Africans cannot and will not dethrone Black Americans. And it's on my channel, Realities in an Unrealistic World. The comment reads as follows. The pettiness in the Black community is the reason why we cannot unite. We are the pettiest people on planet Earth. Pettiness is good. Pettiness don't allow anything to slide by. Africa is owed trillions of dollars from those that were mining and that was required to pay 30% royalty. And I'm going to let you listen to a clip. But they was required to pay, the miners were required to pay 30% to mine on Africa's property. And to date, Africa has not received anything. Had Africa spoken up, had Africa acted out without fear and spoke up for themselves and took away their permit to mine, maybe they would be a lot farther than where they are. But because of the fact that they lack pettiness, they was not able to nip that in the bud. So I beg the difference when you say that pettiness in the Black community is the reason why we can't unite. Black people in America was able to unite whenever something needed to be done. Even when the Democrat Party used the so-called Black Americans to get you to vote, to put Biden in office, they had the so-called Black Americans, especially in Georgia, working 24/7 to get something done. When Black Americans need to get something done, they know how to come together. Just look in the case of all these protests, especially the one with G. Floyd. Black people were able to get things done. So even when it comes to reparations or any other injustices, the Black Americans, if they put their heart and mind to it, know how to unite. They have become the poster child globally. When G. Floyd was taken out of this world, they had people in other nations protesting Black Lives Matter. That was caused by the so-called Black Americans uniting. Now I want you to listen to this woman from the continent, Dr. Arikana, and then she reflects on the recent U.S.-Africa Leader Summit, but she also talks about the mining that took place in Africa where they were cheated out of 30%. See, this is how other nations are going to the continent and raping the continent, and the leaders are not brave enough or don't have spine enough in their backs to stand up and be petty. There's a saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So when you're squeaking and you're squeaking and you're squeaking and you're squeaking and they get tired of hearing you squeak, they're going to oil you. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. That's that pettiness. So maybe the Africans on the continent need to be more petty and squeak a little bit without fear. But listen to what she has to say.
and the fact that people are being punished without trial and taking action as a continent against those illegalities. What's your take on how we can use legal instruments as Africans to enforce our rights and stop begging the Americans, the West, to feel pity for us when there are laws in this rule-based system?
I think that issue goes back down to the brainwashing that we as Africans have gone through, the inherent fear of those who don't look like us, the fact that we were made to believe that everything African was bad and undesirable and everything European was better. And hence our own brainwashing and being trained to feel that when we look and behave more like the West, we are more desirable. So the inherent fear of those who don't look like us, particularly white people, is at the bottom of it all as well. So those people in positions where they should challenge, they are afraid. They do not. It is a serious problem. It's an issue that we must continue to tackle, where we have our rights being violated. Like I just had a meeting with a group of, with the community, a mining community, where they have lots of mines in their area, but the mines are not paying royalties. And the royalties are due going back to the late 50s. The communities, late 50s. The communities are completely impoverished. They still live in mud huts, and yet there are 26 big mining corporations that are refusing to pay 30%. It's a simple, straight case of getting a legal team assembled and assisting them in making sure that these royalties are paid.
Glencoe.
But what I'm saying is, you see a lot of that throughout Africa, where royalties are due, where those mineral assets belong to the people. These mines, these mining companies were given the rights to mine on condition that 30% of their productivity goes back into to develop the communities. They have done nothing to develop those communities. These are legal battles that should be, yes, these are straightforward legal cases that
enforce.
It's not even enforced to pay abject. These fees are due, overdue. They're just not paying them. So it's not
these are billions of
trillions. Wow. Think of 30% since 1958 to this date. And they refuse to pay. So yeah, you're quite right.
It's a range of about 1.9 billion.
We need to stand up and support these communities and make these multinationals, they need to pay. So atrocities are being committed everywhere in Africa. And we are not standing up, and we are not standing up for our rights. But I blame those of us who are able. We should go after those communities.
Now, since 1950, 30% mining, and they were required to pay 30% royalty and help develop the land, and they did nothing. They refused. See, that's when you become petty and you stand up for yourself and you yank those rights away for them to mine. You kick them off of your property. And then if you feel you need to do something legally, you do it, but you stop them. You don't allow them to continue mining there, knowing that they're punking you, knowing that they're refusing to pay 30%. Yes, you can mine on my property, but I get 30% of what you dig up. And they refuse to pay that. So they're coming there robbing Africa of the minerals, of the natural resources, going back to their country, developing their country, and here it is, like she said, they got people still living in mud huts. They're struggling. So had they have been what you call petty, Africa would be a lot further. The leaders need spine in their back. If I was president, if I was one of those African leaders, I know how to talk to them. And as a matter of fact, Trump is a good example of what African leaders should do. When you had these so-called allies refuse to pay, Trump became like a gangster and said, look, where's our money? You gonna pay. We're gonna cut you off until you pay. The UK, Germany, these countries that owed, they start paying up. They started paying up because Trump said, "Look, we're gonna get what you owe." They started doing America the same way, refusing to pay. So those leaders in Africa need to be petty. They need to complain. They need to stop them from mining. No, you can't dig anymore. You're not even welcome on this property until you pay up. When you pay up, then we'll talk about you coming back here. So pettiness is good. Pettiness is good. And I think that more of the so-called Black Americans, as well as those on the continent, need to become more petty, because if you were petty and you complained, or you was ready to stand up and fight for what is yours, Africa would not be in the condition that they're in now. And like I said, the so-called Black Americans, they know how to unite when needed. When they have a cause, they know how to come together, and they know also how to bring the world together with them. So don't get it twisted. Pettiness is good. And I'm for pettiness. Until next time, I'm fearless.